Hello and welcome to Investment Insight. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Now let's break down what's happening in the markets today in a clear and simple way.
Absolutely, and we've got a really interesting topic today.
We really do. Today we are doing a deep dive into, well, basically why your next iPad is suddenly going to cost you $150 more.
Yeah, a lot more.
Right. And we're going to look into why it's entirely the fault of some tech billionaire building an artificial intelligence server farm 3,000 miles away.
Which sounds crazy, but it's completely true.
It is. So our mission today is to uncover the hidden physical cost of the whole AI boom. Because, we hear about AI constantly as this magical, futuristic software floating up in the cloud.
Right, like it just exists in the ether.
Exactly. But behind the scenes, recent analysis shows it is causing this massive bottleneck in heavy manufacturing. The tech industry is literally calling this phenomenon Ramageddon.
Ramageddon. I love that term, even though it's pretty terrifying for the market.
It really is. So, to get to the bottom of this, we are synthesizing a bunch of recent reporting. We've got deep dive analysis from the Wall Street Journal, financial forecasts from Barron's, consumer data from the South China Morning Post, and a ton of recent supply chain metrics.
A lot of hard data.
Yep. And we are going to connect the dots between all these sources to show you how a massive shift in global tech infrastructure is quietly reaching right into your wallet.
It really is a profound shift.
Yeah.
I mean, it completely shatters that illusion that artificial intelligence is just invisible code.
Right.
AI is an incredibly resource-intensive, heavy industry undertaking. Like, what we are witnessing right now is basically a brutal war over the raw physical materials required to build that infrastructure.
And everyday consumers like you and me are just the collateral damage.
Exactly. We're the ones paying for it.
So to understand how you end up paying for that damage, we have to look at the shockwave that just hit the consumer tech market. On June 25th, 2026, Apple did something it almost never does.
Right. They really don't do this often.
No, they significantly raised prices across their established legacy product lines.
Okay, let's unpack this because Apple does not just hike prices randomly.
They really don't.
No. I mean, to appreciate how wild this is, you have to understand Apple's historical power in the market, right?
No, absolutely.
Under Tim Cook, Apple became famous for having this absolute iron grip control over its supply chain. Because they buy components by the hundreds of millions, they act as like the ultimate bully in the schoolyard.
Yeah, they dictate everything.
Right, they dictate the terms, the prices, the margins to the factories building their parts. So if a specific component suddenly gets a little more expensive to manufacture, Apple doesn't usually raise the price of the MacBook.
No, they just use their immense leverage to force the supplier to eat the loss.
Exactly. Which brings us to the present.
Right, and what's fascinating here is that historical context is so crucial because Apple is arguably the most powerful buyer on the planet. But on June 25th, their leverage just completely evaporated.
Just gone. Gone. The underlying cost pressures from their memory chip suppliers became so overwhelmingly massive that it was mathematically impossible for Apple to force those suppliers to swallow it.
And impossible for Apple to absorb it into their own margins, too.
Exactly. They simply had to pass the bill directly to the customer.
And looking at the data from the Wall Street Journal, I mean, the numbers on that bill are staggering. The MacBook Neo jumped from $599 to $699.
A full $100.
Yeah. And certain MacBook Airs went up by $200. iPad Airs are up by $150. We are looking at 15 to 25% price hikes on everyday devices.
Which is just a jarring leap for products that already command a premium brand tax,
Totally. And Wall Street kind of freaked out, right?
Oh, they panicked immediately. When that pricing data broke, Apple's stock dropped about 5%.
But, I mean, the true tell was what happened to the rest of the industry.
Right.
Dell's stock absolutely plummeted by about 8% on the exact same morning. Which, honestly, that makes perfect sense. Because investors looked at Apple, the biggest bully in the yard, and realized that if Apple's getting shaken down for lunch money by its suppliers, smaller kids like Dell or HP stand absolutely no chance.
Precisely. It was this massive wake-up call that the fundamental economics of consumer hardware had just broken overnight.
Okay, so let's think about this. Apple is suddenly eating a 25% cost increase on memory components.
Yeah.
For a company known for bringing suppliers to their knees, that tells me the supplier suddenly found a buyer who is completely immune to Apple's bullying.
Exactly. They found a bigger fish.
Right, so who on earth has deeper pockets and more leverage than Apple?
The AI data centers.
Ugh.
Yeah, specifically the massive server farms being built by tech billionaires and cloud providers to train artificial intelligence models.
Wow, okay.
So to understand why your local Best Buy is suddenly way more expensive, you have to look at the physical architecture of those AI servers.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, they rely on immensely powerful processors, like NVIDIA GPUs. But those processors are completely useless without massive amounts of a very specific, highly advanced type of memory.
Okay.
It's called high bandwidth memory, or HBM.
Wait, let me stop you there because when I hear memory, I just think of the standard RAM in my laptop, right?
Sure,
The
yeah.
stuff that lets me keep like 50 browser tabs open without my computer crashing. How is this AI memory different, and why on earth does it affect the price of the normal RAM in my iPad?
Well, that is the core of the issue right there. Think of standard RAM, the memory in your laptop, like a wide 10-lane highway.
Okay, a big highway.
Right. It's great for moving normal, everyday traffic back and forth, but AI models need to process billions of data points in a fraction of a second. A 10-lane highway just isn't fast enough.
It just gets backed up.
Exactly. So high bandwidth memory, or HBM, basically takes those memory chips and physically stacks them on top of each other.
Oh, literally stacking them.
Yeah, like a 20-story skyscraper of highways right next to the processor.
Okay, so I'm picturing a massive multi-level interchange.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Hmm.
But here is the catch building that 20-story skyscraper requires, taking all the cement, all the asphalt, and all the construction crews away from the normal highway projects.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. In the tech world, that cement is raw silicon wafers and highly specialized factory packaging capacity. HBM is incredibly difficult to build.
So it eats up all the resources.
Exactly. Stacking those chips consumes a disproportionate amount of silicon. So every single HBM chip that a factory produces means dozens of standard laptop memory chips are just not being produced.
Wow.
It is a strict zero-sum game.
Okay, that explains the mechanism perfectly. So it's not just that AI companies are buying a different product, it's that their premium product is cannibalizing the raw materials and the factory floor space needed to make the cheap everyday product.
Yep. And what's wild is how quickly the memory manufacturers just completely abandoned the consumer market.
Just left them out to dry.
Pretty much. The big three memory makers, SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron, looked at the AI boom and realized they had a golden ticket. AI clients are willing to pay astronomical premiums for HBM.
Right.
So the memory makers basically halted expansion on standard memory lines and converted everything they could into AI memory production.
And the data we have on the resulting price shock is just wild. I mean, recent market analysis shows that in the first quarter of 2026, general DRAM contract prices skyrocketed by 93 to 98%.
Almost doubled.
Literally doubled in 3 months. The raw cost of basic computer memory doubled. And the projections for the second quarter show another 58 to 63% jump for DRAM.
Just keeps going up.
Plus a 70 to 75% spike for NAND flash, which is, the long-term storage in your devices.
Yeah, the solid state drives.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me try to put this into an everyday perspective for you guys listening.
Yeah.
Imagine a local farmer who has a feast amount of land. For years, this farmer has reliably grown corn and sold it to the local grocery store, right?
Okay, I like where this is going.
So the grocery store, which represents consumer tech companies like Apple or Dell, is a steady, predictable client. But suddenly, a billionaire VIP rolls into town in a convoy of SUVs.
The AI data centers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This VIP represents the AI data centers. The billionaire walks up to the farmer and says, "I don't want your cheap corn. I want truffles.
Oh, nice.
I want you to convert your entire farm to hunting truffles. I will pay you 10 times what the grocery store pays. I'll pay you entirely in cash up front, and I'll sign a contract to buy every single truffle you find for the next 5 years."
Wow. Yeah, obviously that farmer's going to immediately bulldoze the cornfields.
Bulldoze them instantly.
It's an airtight analogy,
Right.
especially the part about the long-term contracts, actually, because we have hard evidence of this playing out right now.
We do.
Yeah, recent industry reports confirm that Micron just signed a staggering $22 billion long-term contract with 16 strategic AI clients.
22 billion.
Billion, with a B. And this wasn't just a handshake agreement, The contract includes massive cash deposits, guaranteed price floors, and these strict take-or-pay clauses.
Wait, meaning the AI companies have to pay for the chips whether they actually end up using them or not?
Exactly. They are completely removing all the financial risk for the memory manufacturer.
So the AI VIPs have effectively locked up Micron's premium memory supply until what, 2027?
At least 2027, yeah. And when a manufacturer secures a guaranteed multi-billion-dollar zero-risk contract from a cloud provider, they have absolutely zero incentive to care about the memory chips needed for your next consumer tablet.
That makes total sense.
AI is simply a vastly superior allocation of their factory space, so the consumer tech companies are left fighting over this rapidly shrinking scrap pile of leftover memory.
So the memory suppliers are basically printing money, the AI server farms get their towering skyscrapers of chips, and companies like Apple are stuck paying double for their basic components. A cost they're now obviously shoving onto the consumer. But let's talk about the fallout of that. We're dealing with consumer electronics here. What happens when the average person walks into a store and actually sees these new prices?
Well, the macroeconomic impact is projected to be pretty severe. We're looking at forecasts suggesting this Ramageddon effect could drive global smartphone shipments down by 14%.
14.
Yeah, and global PC shipments down by 11.3%. That represents millions of devices just sitting unsold in warehouses.
Okay, I have to push back on those numbers a bit, especially regarding Apple. Like a 14% drop in smartphones?
I know, it sounds high.
Are people really going to throw their hands up over a $150 price hike, abandon their Apple ecosystem, and go buy a cheap Android? I mean, people treat their iPhones and Macs like essential life support systems.
It's true.
The brand loyalty is practically a religion.
You're touching on a really crucial dynamic there, the power of the ecosystem lock-in. For premium brands like Apple, you're totally correct. The immediate threat is not a mass defection to Android.
Right?
Because once a consumer has the Apple Watch, the AirPods, the MacBook, and all their family photos permanently tethered to iCloud, the friction of switching to a different operating system is just way too painful.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with green text bubbles.
Exactly. Apple know you won't leave.
So if they know I'm trapped, why is a price hike a problem for their bottom line? Just charge me more, right?
Because of a behavioral shift called extended replacement cycles.
Okay.
Think about it. When you see that a new iPad Air costs $150 more than you expected, your reaction isn't to buy a Samsung tablet. Your reaction is to look at your current iPad, realize the screen only has like one minor crack in it,
Right. It still mostly works.
and decide you can probably squeeze another year or two out of it.
Ah, I see the danger there. Apple's entire growth model relies on consumers treating their devices like a subscription, basically upgrading every 2 to 3 years.
Exactly.
So if millions of trapped customers suddenly decide to stretch that lifespan to 4 or 5 years, that represents a massive crater in Apple's future revenue.
It does. And it gets even worse for their profit margins.
How so?
Let's imagine you absolutely must upgrade because your laptop just completely died.
Okay.
But you're hit with this massive sticker shock from the new pricing. Instead of buying the high-end Pro version with max-out storage like you usually would, you decide to pinch pennies and buy the absolute bare-bones base model.
Oh, I've definitely done that.
Right. And when millions of consumers downgrade their tier to fit a fixed budget, Apple's average selling price, or ASP, just plummets. They still technically made a sale, but their profit margin on that transaction is severely compressed.
That's a fascinating psychological trap. Consumers won't leave, but they will aggressively tighten their belts while staying inside the ecosystem. And while we've seen this play out with the Macs and iPads this summer, there is a looming showdown regarding Apple's most important product. Here's where it gets really interesting. As of late June 2026, iPhone prices have remained completely untouched.
Untouched. And that is the massive elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Because the iPhone isn't just a product. It is the central engine of Apple's entire financial existence. Altering the price of the flagship iPhone is the most sensitive, dangerous lever the executive team can pull.
But the data indicates their hand might actually be forced. Analysts cited in both the Washington Post and Barron's are raising serious alarms that Apple may have to hike the upcoming fall iPhone Pro prices by $50 to $100.
Which is a huge jump for a phone.
It is. But if memory prices have doubled, the physical cost to build the phone is just too high to maintain their historic margins without a hike, right?
It is. But doing so would be an incredibly precarious move on the global stage. I mean, we are already observing the chilling effect of just the rumors of a price hike.
Just the rumors.
Yeah. Deep dive analysis from the South China Morning Post highlights that Chinese consumers are already pausing their upgrade plans.
Wow.
And China is a hyper-competitive, absolutely critical market for Apple. It's filled with domestic brands offering premium hardware at much lower prices.
Right. Huawei and Xiaomi and all those.
Exactly. So if Apple raises prices there, they risk permanently alienating a massive demographic.
It sounds like an intense game of chicken between Apple and the global consumer, and it fundamentally alters what we call the value proposition.
Silly.
If Apple stands on a stage this fall and asks the world to pay $100 more for a smartphone, the consumer is going to demand to know what they're actually getting for that extra money.
That is the ultimate strategic dilemma for them. If Apple hikes the price, they cannot simply offer incremental improvements anymore.
Right, it can't just be slightly faster.
No, they must provide undeniable, revolutionary value. That means they have to deliver massive leaps forward in Apple Intelligence, their localized AI features, or they need to unveil unprecedented hardware upgrades.
Like a battery that lasts 3 days or a radically new camera system.
Exactly, because if they fail to deliver that,
Yeah, if Tim Cook gets on stage and presents a phone that looks identical, functions identically, and takes the exact same photos but costs $100 more, purely because the internal memory chips were expensive to source, the consumer is going to revolt.
they will. The consumer will simply say, I am skipping this generation.
Yep.
And if a significant percentage of the global user base skips a generation, the narrative of Apple as an unstoppable growth stock just shatters. This fall is going to be the ultimate stress test of whether Apple's premium brand aura can stretch far enough to cover the massive logistical costs of the AI boom.
So Apple's struggle with the iPhone is basically a perfect microcosm for a much wider earthquake happening across the tech industry right now.
It really is.
We need to zoom out and look at the whole chessboard. So what does this all mean for an everyday investor or a consumer trying to make sense of the tech sector?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the most vital insight is that the era of the tech sector moving as one unified upward trend is just over.
Yeah.
During the tech boom of the 2010s, a rising tide lifted all boats. If you were a tech company, your stock went up. But the AI boom is entirely different.
It's selective.
It's a zero-sum environment. What we are witnessing right now is one of the largest wealth transfers in modern history, happening entirely within the technology supply chain itself.
Let's clearly define the sides of that wealth transfer based on the data. The undisputed winners of this era are the memory and component makers.
Oh, without a doubt.
Companies like Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung. For the first time in years, they hold absolute pricing power.
Yep.
They have billionaire AI companies lining up at their doors, throwing cash at them, and guaranteeing their profit margins all the way through 2027.
They are acting as the toll booths for the AI revolution, and they are extracting maximum value.
Love that. The toll booths.
And on the losing side, or rather the side bearing all the financial pain, are the consumer hardware companies. Apple, Dell, HP, Lenovo.
The brands we actually interact with.
Exactly. They are trapped in a vice. They are forced to buy these vastly inflated memory chips just to build their products, and they face the agonizing daily choice of either destroying their own profit margins by absorbing the cost,
Which investors hate.
right, or risking a total collapse in consumer sales by hiking prices.
And as we discussed earlier, if the mighty Apple with its trapped ecosystem and unparalleled brand loyalty, if they are sweating over a $100 price hike, the smaller players must be facing an existential crisis.
A total crisis.
I'm thinking about mid-tier PC makers, budget Android smartphone brands, and, video game console manufacturers.
They're in severe danger.
Yeah.
Because those smaller companies operate on razor-thin margins to begin with, and they have absolutely zero ecosystem lock-in.
None.
A mid-tier Android manufacturer cannot raise the price of their phone by $50 because their customer will instantly walk across the street and buy a competitor's phone for less.
They'll just switch.
Exactly. For them, this surge in memory prices isn't just a margin issue. It threatens their ability to stay in business entirely.
It's incredibly ironic when you view this through the lens of the broader American economy right now.
How so?
Well, with the current economic climate and the Trump administration in office, inflation is obviously a massive everyday talking point. We constantly hear about the rising cost of groceries, housing, and gas.
Right.
But The tech world is experiencing a very unique flavor of inflation right now.
It really is. It's the grand irony of the artificial intelligence narrative.
Mm.
I mean, Silicon Valley has spent the last few years aggressively pitching AI as the ultimate deflationary force. The
Yes.
promise is always that AI will automate tasks, streamline businesses, drastically lower production costs, and ultimately make goods and services cheaper for everyone in the long run.
That is always the headline. AI will do your work faster and cheaper. We're constantly told it's a tool for massive economic efficiency.
But the physical reality on the ground right now is the exact opposite.
It's making things more expensive.
Yeah. The sheer brute force cost of manifesting this technology, building the sprawling data centers, upgrading the energy grids to power them, and hoarding every available advanced memory chip on the planet is acting as a massive inflation shock.
Wow.
Artificial intelligence is currently driving up the physical cost of everyday consumer electronics. The very technology that was promised to make our lives cheaper is literally making your next laptop, your tablet, and your smartphone more expensive today.
That is such a profound contradiction to wrap your head around. We've been so focused on the software, the chatbots and the image generators that we just completely ignored the heavy industry required to run them.
We really did.
The transition to this futuristic AI world is incredibly expensive in terms of raw materials, and we are just now realizing exactly who is going to be forced to foot the bill.
The supply chain has ruthlessly shifted its allegiance to the highest bidder, and the everyday consumer is the one left holding the check.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on as you go about your week.
Let's hear it.
The next time you walk into a store to replace an aging phone or buy a new laptop, and you look at that inflated price tag and wince, ask yourself a question. Are you actually paying for a significantly better, more innovative device for you? Or are you just involuntarily subsidizing a tech billionaire's massive AI data center halfway across the country?
That's a great question to think about.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.